Professional politicians live off of problems because that's how they raise money. Oh, the Reaganites that I see on X, their heads are going to blow off. You can't do that. Yes, you can. The evidence of fraud, these people are busted. Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. David Penn, your host. Glad to be with you on this Tuesday night, February 4th, coming to you at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time with a very interesting edition of the podcast. We call this edition Busted. Busted. We all know what busted means. Lots going on. President Trump is a warrior for we the people. Now I'm watching closely on X the disarray of the leftists. Their narrative has failed. They have a collapse of their ideological framework. And President Trump had many years, his associates and him have crafted a plan to hit the leftists, the communists, the globalists. He's hit them in so many ways so quickly, they really don't even know where to start in response. They're not even sure what the central attack is going to be. He's got a wide front that he's working. We're watching it. Of course, what we get is the reportage on the news, which means that we're subject to manipulation and propaganda. So I'm very careful about what I say and conclude about what's going on. And there's areas of it that I'm right in the middle of, the trade part. Boy, there's few citizens that have as much insight into the trade aspect as I do. So I'm able to, because of my experience, not saying I'm smart, it's experience, I'm able to understand what he's doing in that regard at a level that I don't see in our political class. As I wrote, these people, most of them can't even run away, let alone run a business. So how they're commenting on this, boy, they're really out over their skis. I want to start out with something that I'm delving into heavily, which Romans 11. Romans 11 has a lot to it. And I urge all of you, whether you are a biblical person, believe in the Bible, don't believe in the Bible, it is fundamental to what is happening geopolitically here today in 2024. The people that have created the world we're living in were operationalizing Romans 11, and the end of it is something that they believe they understood or they wanted to be part of. Let's put it that way. This is the 33rd line of Romans 11. Oh, the depths of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable his judgments and his paths beyond tracing out. Who has known the mind of the Lord? Or who has been his counselor? Who has ever given to God that God should repay them? For from him and through him and for him are all things. To him be the glory forever. Amen. Boy, that really, that says a lot. And, in a kind of a way, from a logic perspective, it's somewhat of a tautology because the default is so high above my thoughts as God thoughts that I can't recognize them. So if you're saying that, God doesn't exist, it's a tautology because you can't recognize him. Can't recognize him. He's so profound that I can't understand him. So someone could come in and say, if you can't understand him and you can't recognize him, he doesn't exist. It's a tautology in here. It's difficult. But the point is that the plan, the way all this is working is so complex. And we're in an area now where things have been done that have never been done before. So it's very difficult to predict the future for the pundit or the prognosticator. The future will be determined by those who show up and shape it. So, to that end, I want to remind everybody that I'm asking you to join me. I'm asking you to come. I mean, this is really why I'm doing these podcasts. I would like every American citizen, I would like you tonight to resolve with me that you're going to enter your local political process. President Trump is a once in a 100-year candidate. What's going on is a once in a several 100-year uh, time period. Lenin said something like there are, years when nothing happens, and then there's years when decades happen. I'm paraphrasing. The point being, this is a moment fraught with danger, full of opportunity, and I am not going to leave it to everybody else. It's my responsibility as a human being to get involved in this because it's a jump ball. So I'm going to ask you to please, please resolve, please. Something is going to motivate somebody in this audience tonight. And you can put it right in the live chat and talk to me. I'll be in the chat. Somebody is going to decide that the future of their life, the future of their children's lives, should not be left to careerist politicians who dominate the Republican Party, one of which I'll speak about here in a moment. The careerists, the people that are not in it with sacred honor, the people that are not in it to serve the people in it who see politics as a means of aggrandizing themselves. We can't afford to have those people with their hands on the steering wheel right now, or we will lose our freedom. So please, it is through political participation, it is through entering the party, it is through being political as the framers intended that we, the people, will maintain this great republic. So on Friday night, and every Friday night at 9 p.m. Easterns, 8 p.m. Central, I will be participating in an X Spaces. Go to X, get an X account. That's the battle space. It's on Friday night, 8 p.m. Central, at Dan Schultz 2, at Dan Schultz 2. And we're aggregating people there. And I'd like to have an army of people there. We don't need everyone. We just need the right people and enough of them. And if you are that person that feels that calling tugging inside of you to get off the couch and do something, please, I look forward to meeting you there. Forgive me my sins, O Lord. Forgive me my sins. The sins of my soul, the sins of my youth, the sins of my age, the sins of my body, my idle sins, my serious voluntary sins, the sins I know, the sins I have concealed so long, and which are now hidden from my memory. I am truly sorry for every sin, mortal and venial, for all the sins of my childhood up to the present hour. I know my sins have wounded thy tender heart, O my Savior. Let me be freed from the bonds of evil through the most bitter passion of my Redeemer. O Jesus, forget and forgive what I have been. Amen. It's my sins that block me from communion with the search for truth. It's just, mine. I mean, and particularly for someone like me, man, I mean, I'm so blessed with experiences, and so are you. Mine are no greater than yours. I mean, yours are great. Uh, should we look back and say, wow, that was cool? Wow, that was a miracle. Wow, that was lucky. I got into a conversation with somebody about what's the difference between luck and a miracle. I guess it's perspective. Um, I've said this and I like this one. Um, if you had there's 26 letters in the alphabet. So let's say you made a billion little pieces of paper with one letter on each little piece of paper. And you put it in a box and you shook it up and you threw it up and it came down Hamlet. Wow, that's a miracle. Tanner, could you please play number one?
I think we got 5,000 already arrested the first week, and majority of them being criminals. The non-criminals, and the media's talking about, who are these non-criminals? The non-criminals are arrested in sanctuary cities because you force us into the community rather than arresting the bad guy in the jail. And when we find that criminal, he's most likely with others, and they're going to go too. So if you want to be a sanctuary city, you're going to get exactly what you don't want. More agents in the community and more non-criminals arrested.
Well, that is Tom Homan talking about sanctuary cities. Mr. Homan is in charge of the deportation operations that are going on throughout our land. It's one of the numerous fronts that President Trump's new administration has opened up against the leftists. Let us remember when we go to our church, for example, and the priest or the minister stands up in front of us, or the rabbi, and says, we must love our neighbors. These are human beings. They're entitled to human rights and civil rights. And, of course, the left has picked this up, the AOCs of the world. Here in Minneapolis, Ilhan Omar is leading the charge to protect these, they're human beings. I mean, I really, truly get it. Because guess what? My grandfather, my grandmother, they were also refugees. I never really thought about it this directly, but this is called weaponized migration. So one could say that the people that came out of Eastern Europe and went to the United States and Israel, they could be part of a weaponized migration strategy. In fact, the entry of Europeans into the Middle East, it was weaponized and it was a migration and it changed the politics of Israel, formerly Palestine. It was a very successful effort that was run by who? The British. The British decided, that's why I'm reading this doxology from Romans 11. They decided that the plan to bring about the return of the Messiah involved returning the Jews to Israel. And as you know, they had another kind of dark purpose, which they had no claim to the land where the Russians and the French did, and they were looking to get some purchase on the deal because it's such a strategic area. And they said, well, we're going to send the Jews back, but we'll make them Christians first, and then we too will have a claim to that real estate. But others in that effort actually had a faith that returning the Jews to Palestine, to Israel, was going to have some kind of theological impact and import. So it was a weaponized migration. It was intentional. It was not organic. Well, okay, so here's how things work. We as human beings have not been conscious very long. Seems like a long time, but in the span of the universe, it's but the twinkling of an eye. And we're getting better and better at doing the things we think are important, right? So this immigration thing, well, hey, it's now a fine art. This migration, the forced migration of peoples, can be weaponized, and it has been weaponized against the United States of America. 15 million people, we don't even know. I have no clue. The numbers don't mean anything to me. I just know that in the house right next to me, there's 20 folks living there in a house that should be for 3 or 4. And up the block, there's 20 people living in that house, and there should be 3 or 4 in that house. I know it's right in my neighborhood, people that they don't come out, or if they do come out, they're not friendly, and they don't speak English, and they're not citizens. At least that's how it appears to me. And, I don't know. Could be. There's 20 Islamic people living, a few doors down from me, 20 in a house. They could all be citizens. They're all wearing traditional, clothing, and they don't ever speak English, and they sit out in front and smoke cigarettes and glare at me when I walk by. They could be citizens. I don't know. I'm not going to ask them. They don't seem very friendly. But overall, we do have a weaponized migration, weaponized, with an open border intentionally left open. And I don't want to hear and I will not listen to the lies because I could see it with my own eyes. I will not listen to the lies because I could see it with my own eyes. These folks came across the border in the millions, and there's an intentionality to it. They were driven here post-COVID because of the shutdowns of their economies. Their economies were destroyed. They were run up here. If you go back and look, President Biden, upon his election, invited these people into the country. They were invited. There was NGOs everywhere facilitating their movement into the country. Oh, organizations like the USAID, the United States Agency for International Development, that funds the NGOs, which is now the subject of much controversy, as you're seeing if you're watching the news. An arm of the CIA, possibly, I don't know, but the allegations have been made. I'm sharing the allegations that have been made. I don't have any verifiable evidence to share. But when I see the ministers and the rabbis and the priests speaking for these people and tearing on the heartstrings of my faith, that I'm supposed to love the neighbor as I love myself, and then I need to have empathy and compassion, yes, I do. But, no, I'm not going to give my country over to communism because a chino or a rhino or a gyno start lecturing me on my faith. You know, from this kind of an argument, we should just get diseases and die because, hey, where are those viruses and bacteria going to live? The border is like our skin. We've been skinned for decades. No border. What happens? Our society fractures. And then I'm told I'm a racist, a misogynist, a xenophobe, a homophobe. I get labeled every possible negative thing. And you know what? It doesn't work anymore. We're watching the collapse of an ideological framework. If we want to have a country, citizenship must matter. If we want to have a country, a border must be in place, or we don't have a country. It's just that simple. I agree with President Trump on this issue. I don't believe that there's going to be 15 million people deported, uh, but I could be wrong. I have no idea where we're headed with this. I really don't. I'm a citizen. Everybody in my family is a citizen. Tanner, are you a citizen?
Yeah, I'm a citizen.
You were born here.
Yes.
I'm just curious. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
What do you think about that? We've never talked about this. I wish all of you were sitting in a lecture hall with me because this would be the moment where I'd say, you know, what do you all think about this? What do you all think about this deportation effort? What do you think about it? What does it mean to you?
I don't know. That's a hard one. I mean, I want our place to be a safe place. I think a lot of the protests that are going on right now are very silly. The whole conversation seems like this is how I feel about it. It's a golden goose
We're going
situation.
to get down to the truth now. Let it out, young
Yeah,
man.
I think it's a golden goose situation. I don't
Meaning,
think
what does that mean, a golden goose
it keeps
situation?
it lays golden eggs, so you don't want to actually fix the problem. Both sides do not want to fix the problem. I think Trump is probably one of the most honest when he says like he wants to fix it, but there's a lot of people, and if they're all undocumented, I don't know. I don't know how you would manage to get done what you're promising. But I think most sides, Republicans and Democrats, they like to talk about the border issue, but they also like to keep it as an issue because it's something that they can talk about and get voters on.
Politicians,
Yeah.
politicians, as we're about to talk about a politician, professional politicians live off of problems because that's how they raise money. See, that's not why I'm asking you to come to the X Spaces on Friday nights at 8 p.m. Central at Dan Schultz 2, because we are not politicians. We are citizens. We want to solve problems. Like, I'm a businessman. Like, you go to Target.com, buy your tires. I have problems every day in my tire business. Every day there's a problem. Every day. Some days it's problems from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. Overwhelming problems. Can't sleep at night problems. But every problem is a puzzle that I want to solve. I'm a business person. And I'm going to tell you, this is my analysis after watching politics since I was laid on my mom and dad's living room floor when I started reading the newspaper when I was like 5, 6 years old. A little strange, right? But that's the facts. I've been watching this my entire life for 60 years. There's two groups, the professors and the business people. There's been a fight over who controls the steering wheel of this country forever. Who's going to run the deal? All right. Most of the politicians, lots of them, were professors, lawyers, people that are educated. The business people, some of them were educated, some of them weren't. It really doesn't matter. The business people, if they're educated or not, have to solve problems. So we got one group that lives off of problems and another group that wants to solve problems. Who do you think's in charge right now, Tanner? The lawyers and the PhDs or the business people?
I think both.
No.
That's why it's so. Oh, it's
No.
definitely both. What?
No. The people that are running the deal right now are problem solvers. See, this is the revolution we're going through. Now, that doesn't mean that in the 535 members of Congress, like about 525 of them are professional politicians. That's true. We just need to get more citizens into the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of politicians hanging around. But the hammers, the guys that are leading out front right now, President Trump and his group of oligarchs, they call them, or billionaires, these people are problem solvers.
Mm.
And the allegation is, of course, from the left that they're doing it to make money. They don't need money. They're billionaires. The whole thing is logically ridiculous. If I have $1 billion, hey, I did it with a tiny little fraction. I said, okay, I got enough money. I'm going to go into this now because I want to save freedom. I want to save my republic. I want to work in this wave of people that are coming forward and entering politics to save the country. You think I'm alone? You think Elon Musk? Yeah, there's issues with Elon Musk. I'm not saying he's not spooky, but clearly from his actions, he's trying to do something righteous. President Trump, yeah, does he have some murkiness in his past? Of course, we all do. Is he standing up to evil and to people that have been, like Chuck Schumer on the front of the podcast, the thumbnail, busted? These people have lived in government. They've never had a job. They can't run away, let alone run a business. They are not qualified to lead. We, the people, just, we elected them. There are people all over the Republican Party, all over, that really, they don't know from Shinola. They really cannot run away, let alone run our government. And many of them appear to be competent when they are not. I was just responding on X as we came on air to Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, a Democrat, was going, hey, look at how they're putting 25% on Mexico and Canada, but only 10% on China. That must mean it's about doing business with China. And I just thought to myself, man, you're a senator? You're a senator. No, there's a 4% base tax, Senator. In President Trump's first term, he put on 25%, and now he's put on another 10. Senator, do you understand anything about trade, Senator Chris? I do. I know when you get 4 as a base and 10 and 25, and you total that up, you might have to get your calculator out because you can't add anymore because you're so addicted to your phone. And that's okay, but the way to do it is to exercise your brain. That's 39%. That is business ending for almost all the products that are coming in from China. It's the end of the road. 39%. There's a, the market can absorb so much, and then you get to that border and it's over. President Trump knew, because he's an importer, he's a businessman. He knows how the thing works. I'm trying to share with you how the thing works. I didn't know how it worked before I started importing. I've imported a lot from China. I import from all over the world, and I buy as much from the United States as I can because Target.com is my baby. I love selling you tires. I love my tire business. I love being a business person. But I'm going to tell you, those consumer tires on TireGet, the inventory up there, 80% of the tires that go on your vehicles, your consumer tires, 80% are imported. 80%. Tanner, did you know 80% of the tires that go on people's cars are 80%? Did you have any idea it was that high?
I would have assumed. I've grown up in a time where I watched Made in USA slowly fade away. So
Do you know,
I'm
do you
very
remember,
much used to everything not being made in the United
do you
States.
remember all the time that I said on the podcast 50% of the tires were imported? And I looked it up. I looked it up when President Trump said, "Oh, we're going to go 25 on Mexico and Canada." And I looked it up and I added it up. I go, 80%. Holy buckets, Batman.
That's a lot.
What happens? What happens if things really go foobar? You can look that up. That's a World War II acronym. Foobar. You can't put that up. There's a swear word in there. You're
Let me
looking at
see
it.
what this is.
You're going to like this, right?
Oh.
I'm going to say it. You can bleep it up. Foobar comes from our valiant fighters for freedom in World War II who were in the military, and things get screwed up there. Foobar, up beyond all recognition. It's You like that one,
Yeah,
right?
I like that one.
Okay, great. But this is a senator who has no clue about trade, yet he comments on it. This was the end of the China business, this 10%. I mean, President Trump actually baited them, because what he's hoping they're going to do is devalue their currency to offset the 10, which makes the Chinese people pay for the tax. Yes, half the story's not been told. It's true. We, the importers, we, the people, pay the tax. That's true. But the people who are exporting to our country, their currencies are devalued by the tariff wedge. That offsets the tariff. And I'm not going to get all the way down in the weeds. This is another one of those things that people don't understand. The currency matters. When the currency devalues, the price really doesn't change. The government just taxes it. But those poor people in China, I'm talking about Lao Beijing, the regular people like you and me, when the government devalues the currency so that the China business with the United States continues, their purchasing power gets eroded by 10%. So they're made poor by who? President Trump. So when he says the Chinese are going to pay for it, you're not listening. He didn't say the Chinese are going to pay the tax. He said the Chinese are going to pay for it. And if he did say they're going to pay the tax, that's also correct, because they're going to pay for it. So if Mexico and Canada get tariffs, their currencies are going to devalue, and the people in Canada and Mexico are going to pay for what President Trump called retaliatory tariffs. He's retaliating. And people go, "Oh, you can't do that. Those are our allies." Okay, great. Have you been to Canada?
No.
Have you been to Mexico?
No.
Do you know I own businesses in both countries? Did you know that?
Yes.
You did know that. That make me qualified to talk about Canada and Mexico, because I've been in both countries many, many times. And guess what? Doing business is one notch down from getting married. I didn't marry a Canadian. I didn't marry a Mexican, but I do business there, which is really being part of the culture. And these people comment on stuff, they know nothing about it.
And
Eh, go
just to
ahead.
clarify for me real quick, because I'm a little confused on the tariff things too. So one day I would like to go in depth on why the currency gets affected by a tariff, kind of like what you were just explaining in China. But the other side of it is it as simple as I'm thinking of it. So when people have these conversations of like, oh, the consumer is gonna have to pay this tax, we just don't buy the product, right? Like it's as simple as
That
that. And
would
they just
be
won't say that on the news. They say, "Oh my gosh, Americans goods are going up in price." Just don't buy it. It might be a little uncomfortable, but the businesses are going to find a way to get you to buy it eventually.
no, the businesses are going to find workarounds.
Yeah.
Everybody, because we're so orientated on price, because we've all been turned into Marxists. The first thing I thought when that 25% came on, and I like guacamole. I do. I like making it. I like guacamole.
Yeah.
And I live without avocados? And the answer is yes, I can. People make other choices. They do other things. This whole fear mongering about there's going to be inflation from an increase in a price. Inflation has nothing to do with the price of hard goods. There's only one cause of inflation, and that's government deficit spending and debt, the creation of a larger and larger money supply. Price of a particular good or service doesn't even hit the Richter scale. So when these tariffs are imposed, and they will be, that's another thing. People are talking about this like it's not going to happen or there has to be a deal. No, it's coming. What President Trump is doing right now is he's conditioning us to accept an entirely new form of taxation called tariffs. They could have put a VAT tax on. I'm not going to get into that. A lot of countries have VAT taxes. They tax the goods as they go through the supply chain. Trump didn't do that because there's no leverage with the VAT tax. You just make people pay more. No, he wanted a tax which he could use geopolitically, which is tariffs. He's going to use them to get concessions because he wants to make money. He's a businessman. Since I saw you last, he signed an executive order to start a sovereign wealth fund. Sovereign wealth fund. That means the government is going into business. You know, the Reaganites that I see on X, their heads are going to blow off. You can't do that. Yes, you can. We have to attenuate our governmental activities for the time that we're in. As the new Treasury Secretary Bessent said, they're going to monetize the asset side of the balance sheet. That's another thing. Can't explain it today in an hour and a half podcast, but there's so many ways. And what is it? The theme? We're $36 trillion in debt. There's going to be a 20% tax. This is just the way it is. A 20% tax on everything coming in the country, which is $4 trillion. $4 trillion. That's $800 billion. You get some savings from the Department of Government Efficiency, which is now caught up in this brouhaha over the United States Agency for International Development. Oh, and they're fighting that because, when you start pulling back the Band-Aid and looking at these agencies, whoa, I'm going to tell you, is what President Trump doing possibly bending or breaking the rules? Yes. Could a court order stop this? Yes. They'll stop. But you know what they're going to get before they stop? The evidence of fraud. These people are busted. Busted. There are business people on the playing field now that are looking at this and going, we're paying $1,000 for styrofoam cup? Not cups, a cup. The fraud, the abuse, the graft, the corruption has reached intergalactic levels, and they're going to reveal it. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying it is going to happen. It wouldn't surprise me if this gets so severe that the Democrat Party just is over. They have to rebrand. Call yourselves the Communists of America. Let's just be honest about it. And I want to talk a little bit more about these politicians because can you put up that picture of Andrew Myers with the Hennepin County Sheriff that we put up in the last episode? Got that picture? Okay, so I saw this on X. I know Andrew Myers. He is the representative a 45A right in my neighborhood. And I saw this and I looked at it and I said, well, that's strange timing because this Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the same day that Andrew posted this, um, said that they were not going to participate in uh, helping ICE round up these criminals because that's what ICE is doing right now. They're going after the truly bad criminals that are in our society. And it says an open and honest conversation about policy and supporting law enforcement is something. How does it say? Can you read that? Read
Yeah.
that. Read that. I can't see it.
Something I have every time with Sheriff Witt, HTO, excited about the work she has done at Hennepin Sheriff's Department.
Okay, so, talking about policy. On that very same day, the sheriff's office said, we're not going to participate in President Trump's direction, which is strange because they're law enforcement. See, she's in that sheriff. When they pull you over and they're looking like that, I don't care how tough you are, you're paying attention. That's the sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
The sheriff. And, Andrew's elected. He's in our state house. And that seems like a perfectly reasonable thing to do. And he looks so happy. But on that same day, that press release, I posted up into X where this was, where I saw this. Andrew, can you explain this to me? What do you mean you're working together with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office? And he didn't answer me. He didn't answer me. And I thought, well, that's strange. He must not want to answer me because I busted him. And I came on the podcast and I talked about this because it's not that I do or don't like Andrew Myers. It's not personal, Andrew. I know you're watching this. It's not personal. It's not like I do or don't like you. I am an American citizen. I resigned from my board in SD 45 because it was so corrupted. And I am free now because as a, board member, I can't, do this kind of a thing, criticize because they don't like that, see, in the party. We're supposed to be nice to each other. And now that I'm not on the board, I'm bringing because I want to hold Andrew accountable and understand what he's doing. That is my job as an American citizen. If these elected representatives do not have you and I in the parties holding them accountable, if they're not afraid of us, they'll do whatever they want to. And I viewed that picture as him pandering to the communists in his district instead of standing up for the Trump agenda. And he's a Republican, and I was in the district, so I know we're a purple district, and these people didn't even support President Trump or Royce White in the last election cycle. And Andrew's thing was it's not about politics, it's about public service. Well, Andrew, I don't agree with you. I think every Republican elected representative needs to get with the program. We're fighting for our country. As Drew Roach said on the last podcast, if I'm one and done, I'm not going to give up my principles. In other words, if I get elected once and lose the next time because I'm searching for truth, I'm okay with it. Well, this presumes you have principles to start out with, which most of the politicians in our country don't have principles. They have a lust for power and the easy life. That's what it is. You get paid to be yourself. You don't have to really work that hard. They act like they're working. It's not hard work. What I do is hard work. And, I went and met Andrew. I went on Saturday. He had a public forum. He was surprised I walked in, and I asked him straight up, man, what did you mean by this? And he told me he had no idea that the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office on that very same day had released to the press a statement that they would not assist ICE. He said, I don't know anything about it. And, I'm very cool about such things. I just say, okay, those are the words coming out of your mouth. I'm glad I came here and clarified this, Andrew, because I'd been speaking out about it on the podcast. And he got super mad at me. He said, why didn't you call me? I said, well, I did. I posted right back up in there, which told me that he does not look at the threads of his posts because it's just advertising to him. He's not really a social media participant. It's just a means of advertising. I look every time I post, I look at what you say back to me. Many of you, I communicate with you. And I thank you very much for amplifying the podcast and the X account and for coming to the X spaces. buying your tires at Target, going to the Free People store. We're a community. We got to work together. But he was super mad, and he got up in a huff and walked out, and he said something like, Republicans eating Republicans. No, I'm not eating any Republicans. I am a person seeking unity, but in the new world that we're in, whatever it was doesn't matter. I know that we're fighting for our freedom against an implacable enemy that is implementing a plan that goes back to the 1880s. Now, Andrew probably doesn't know it, probably doesn't care. But I'd be happy to sit down with you, Andrew, and go through it with you. Maybe I could move your heart. Because whether or not you get elected again or anybody gets elected again is not the issue to me. Now, I know people in the party are going to jump all over me and they're going to say winning is the only thing. No, searching for truth is the only thing. And if we can't get elected by searching for truth, if we don't have an argument, if we don't have a way of talking to people like I'm trying to talk to you, where we convince people of what we believe and we direct them to the source material so that they can find it for themselves, if we don't have a process of awakening the American people to the evil that has surrounded us, that lives inside of us, if we are not awake to that, if we don't struggle with that, we're going to lose our freedom. And so he got very mad at me, and I'm going to say, Andrew, I'd love to support you in your next election effort. I don't have any animus to you. My job is to have our elected representatives search for truth. So all you people, because you're going to, these people, my audience, hey, down in the State House, there's people talking about me because I have people on, they're coming on. Some will and some won't, but I'm inviting all of you on. Every elected representative, Alex Plekish, chairman of the party. I went to Donna Bergstrom, who's the deputy chair of the party. She ran some dude at me named Noah that they hired a communications expert. And, he didn't even respond to me because they don't want to talk to me because they are not willing to engage with the citizens. You and I, they view you and me like pond scum. In the State House, they view us like a plague. They don't want to deal with us. Well, you're going to have to deal with us. We are here now, and there's more of us coming every day. We're not opposed to any of you. You careerists that, float with the wind. Hey, the wind is blowing in a new direction. Get with the program, or you're going to get blown out. Look at Andrew, what he does the next day. Put up this next picture. Puts this up the next day. Always great to get an update from local law enforcement. Thank you to the men and women that keep us safe. Well, this is like children and dogs and cops and old people. This is what politicians trade on with that happy smile. He's so photogenic. You're so good looking, Andrew. You should have gone to Hollywood. Oh, hey, same thing, show business. What a great picture. And the cop smiling, all smiles. So they put up the picture of the sheriff one day. I came in, complained, put up the picture of the cop the next day. Then the day after that, the next picture, when our community comes together, great things happen. A repost of something from the fire department. Everybody likes the firemen. Can you get that picture up there for a second? There's the fireman. And then Andrew ends up, this is over the weekend. For 3 weeks, my colleagues have failed to show up to work, which is another story, in a little inner house fighting between the Democrats and Republicans, theater to raise money. I failed to show up as I work to address food insecurity across the state. Now, Andrew is the representative of one of the wealthiest districts in Minnesota, but his watchword here is he's working on food insecurity. Okay. This all happened since I went and saw him. Now, I'm going to tell you, Andrew, I'm not going to call you a liar, but I am going to say when you get a black stain on a white shirt, don't rub it. It gets bigger, looks worse. Please, let's tell the truth. People are watching every single elected representative now, every one of you. We don't hate the Republican Party. We're Republicans. The party's center of gravity is moving. Now, in Minnesota, for whatever reason, the party doesn't want to move. That is an error. We have to defeat the communists in every state. You know, it's a cancer that has to be removed from the body. If we leave a few cells behind, it's just going to grow back. Kind of an ugly metaphor, but it's not untrue. Since I saw you last, President Trump had allocated $500 billion to an AI, artificial intelligence effort, or at least he said he was going to. And within days afterward, China released an AI program called DeepSeek. DeepSeek. To put this into some kind of framework for you, think of it like the iPhone. Like it's a few years ago and the iPhone just came out and Apple's just killing it selling iPhones for $1,300. And the Chinese show up with a phone that does everything the iPhone does, maybe even better, and it's $3. That's what's just happened. This is a big problem. This is a big problem. You know, the race right now in the world, the military race, is about artificial intelligence. Now, I was talking to Tanner before the show about artificial intelligence, and we agree it's in whose hands it rests. It can be for great ill or for great good. But I will say that the um, AI that's here in the West is not open source. This DeepSeek, it's open source. Open source. I mean, that's mind-boggling. You know, um, the news can be quite manipulative, but this AI war is going on. It is the war right now, and the Chinese are ahead of us. In fact, I think it's in 58 of 64 core and key technologies. Right now, the Chinese are ahead of the United States of America. And that comes when your university system becomes focused on the core pillars of the New World, the post, excuse me, we don't need to get that warning up.
Hmm.
I'm going to censor myself. When your university system, nationwide becomes focused on promoting the post-World War II Democrat liberal order in every element of its activity, so it's focused on climate change and social equity and a woman's right to reproductive health care, when that becomes the core of the academic imperative, there's a little bit of slippage. The Chinese aren't doing that. The Chinese are all together. They don't have to be proselytizing a generation to believe in China. They believe in China. And they're turning out a lot more scientists and they're ahead. And we have to deal with that. And we see that the Russians have some uh, advantages in the military sphere. We're not quite who we think we are. And along those lines, President Trump announced, and I spoke about this, and I want to touch on it again, the immediate construction of an Iron Dome. President Trump realizes that hypersonic missiles right now can't be stopped. So he's saying, hey, I don't want to be at war all over the world, but if I don't feed the beast called the military industrial complex, I probably am going to get killed. I got to feed the beast. Our economy can't survive unless the beast gets fed. So instead of spending $2 trillion a year on offensive capabilities, President Trump is going to redirect that expenditure to create defense. I always say, and I believe, we don't want to disarm America. We don't want to be offensive. That's what we are right now. We're offensive. President Trump, because this guy is a businessman, he's smarter than these ideological professors. That's why they're always saying he's dumb. They don't like it. He's got the drop on him on so many different areas, and his thinking is so next level. I'm watching on X. These people, they don't even know how to respond to him. I mean, he's playing 3D, chess, and they got a checkerboard out. President Trump has asked Jordan and Egypt to take the Gazan refugees and to depopulate the Gaza. Both Jordan and Egypt have refused to do so because when these Palestinian populations have moved into other countries in the Middle East, that'd be Jordan and Lebanon, in the years gone by, there's been huge civil wars. In fact, the current King Hussein's father, King Hussein of 1970, actually expelled the Palestinians out of Jordan by force of arms. It was a very bloody expulsion. So these other countries, the Muslim countries, don't want the Palestinian Muslims in their country. So is President Trump going to prevail here? Well, without U.S. foreign aid, there is no Egypt and there is no Jordan. So let's just keep monitoring along here. In the interest of time, we'll come back to the militarization of the Arctic. Here's a great one that came up. Can you please play number 3?
Methods to treat disorders like schizophrenia and depression are limited, leaving patients and their families desperate for a glimmer of hope. Enter the lobotomy, an invasive procedure that involves severing nerve pathways in the frontal lobes of the brain. Despite its questionable origins and lack of scientific evidence, lobotomy quickly gained popularity as a potential cure for mental illnesses. Imagine doctors performing this procedure on patients without a clear understanding of its effects, often with devastating consequences. Yet, driven by desperation and an eagerness to find a solution, many embraced lobotomy as a beacon of hope. The media played a significant role in perpetuating the myth of the miracle cure. Misinformation spread like wildfire, painting lobotomy as a groundbreaking breakthrough in psychiatric treatment. This distorted portrayal led countless individuals to believe that their suffering could finally come to an end.
There was a concomitant treatment at the time, electroshock therapy, when sufferers of depression, severe depression, as a prelude to the lobotomy, many people were shocked, kind of a torture, severing nerves in the brain, kind of a torture. In other words, medicine, that old saw first do no harm. If there's money to be made, not necessarily. President Trump has signed an executive order banning chemical and surgical mutilation of children. President Trump signed an order restricting transgender service in the U.S. military. He signed a sweeping executive order banning the chemical and surgical mutilation of children in a move that takes direct aim at pediatric gender transition treatments. The order, titled Protecting Children from Chemical and Surgical Mutilation, yanks away federal funding for so-called gender-affirming care. I'm not saying you shouldn't see your doctor, but if you do a little research about what your doctor is telling you, you'll be self-governing. If you just do what people tell you to do, you're not self-governing. So these are the news items that struck me this week. But the big one, of course, was this tariff issue, which I want to comment on after we watch number 4.
Get in.
What the hell is this?
It's necessary, Neo. For our protection.
From what?
From you. Take off your shirt.
What?
Stop the car. Listen to me, Copper Top. We don't have time for 20 questions. Right now, there's only one rule. Our way or the highway.
Fine.
Please, Neo. You have to trust me.
Why?
Because you have been down there, Neo. You know that road. You know
exactly where it ends. And I know that's not where you want to be.
Neo is we the people. And Trinity reminds him when he looks down that road and wants to get out of the car, which is a badass Lincoln Continental. Wow, what a vehicle. When you look down that road, you know where that goes. That's what this tariff thing is all about. We know where we're headed. We know. It's kind of like we're on the deck of the Titanic partying as the ship is sinking. We're putting on $1.5 trillion of debt every year as if it doesn't matter. And it's going to matter, and it's going to matter soon. Had we elected a President Harris and a Vice President Waltz, we would have been marched right into the digital prison because that's where they were taking us. People are going to say, well, how do you know? Read. Go. It's not hidden. I mean, go right to the Federal Register and put in digital currency, central bank digital currency. And you're going to see that President Biden signed executive orders to hurry its introduction into our society, that the Federal Reserve has been participating in the creation of it. And what is a central bank digital currency? It's a replacement for the dollar, which, by the way, which I find interesting, the executive order where President Biden said, hurry it up, said it was to redress the inequalities in our financial system, which hampered black people from an even shake when it came to money. Isn't that great? Use the Jews, use the blacks, use the women, whenever it suits you. Post-World War II Democrat liberal order. Hey, we are your puzzle pieces. We get rolled out there, the Jews, the blacks, and the women. Anytime you need to prove a point, it's got to be about blacks, Jews, or women. Go read what would have happened had the money been digitized. Study it, and you'll recognize who these people are and who President Trump and these business people that have rolled in with them are. This is a block to a plan that goes back over 100 years. It's not going to work if we don't get in the game. I'm just telling you, that's my opinion. It's my opinion. Maybe it'll work if we don't get in the game. But if I'm lazy and I don't care about the outcomes, how can I expect a good outcome when the people that are in politics, many of them, most of them, almost all of them, when they're talking, they're lying. They lie so easy because they don't care about me. If they cared about me, they wouldn't lie to me. I'm lied to by my local politicians. They just lie to me. They lie right to my face. And, we don't have a gear that says, when someone's telling me what they think, we don't have a gear that says, hey, you know what? You're lying to me. Well, let me tell you right now, that's what's going to come up more and more. I cannot have much of a say about what President Trump does or these people in Washington. But the people in my own backyard, if they're not honest with we the people, I'm just going to say, hey, you're a liar. And I'm going to say it over and over again. And if people think they can get elected when they get branded as being liars, and they're all lying. I mean, the Democrats, they take lying to a art form. Their whole ideology is a lie. So how are we going to fix this? We got a group that their ideology is a lie. And then we got another group that says, hey, to get elected, we got to lie too. Got to be just like them. How are we going to break this? It's very simple. It's called brand differentiation. If brand A is lying and brand B tells the truth, who do you think's going to look good in the eyes of the voters? Hey, Tanner, let me ask you a question. You're a young man. You're a young voter. Would you prefer to vote for a good-looking liar or an ugly person telling the truth?
An ugly person telling the truth.
See how simple that is, Republicans? There's a 25-year-old kid. He's telling you how it's going to go down. Okay? Why don't we try telling the truth and see where that gets us? Because if we went telling a lie, where did we go? So we know what's down that road. What's down that road is the destruction of our currency, the destruction of our economy, and slavery, human slavery, technological slavery, digital imprisonment. And President Trump is going to put these tariffs on, in my opinion. I mean, I just read what they write down. I'm not saying they won't change their mind. But for example, when this Scott Bessent was confirmed as the Treasury Secretary in a 68 to 29 vote, which is pretty good. I mean, a lot of Democrats voted for him. He said that he believed that the government of the this is the Treasury Secretary. This is the guy in charge of the cash, right? This is the guy that set up the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is a departure from what we would call laissez-faire capitalism, because our government's now in business like the Chinese is. Okay. Scott Bessent has said that starting in April, the U.S. government is going to put 2.5% tax each month progressively until all goods coming in the country bear a 20% tax. That's the words coming out of his mouth. You can go see it. I'm not saying I know for sure it's going to happen, but how I look at this thing, with we're going to have 25% on our two closest allies, Canada and Mexico. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to take 30 days off. And people are getting on the other side. You know, I just think it's conditioning. We have to get our minds around it as American citizens. And I've said this on the podcast many times. We have to pay for this. We have to pay for the indebtedness that has been acquired since 2000 in Bush by the Uni Party to fight an endless war and to keep the people satisfied with material goods and material safety. To do that, we borrowed $36 trillion in 25 years. If you remove that $36 trillion of created money, it's not money that came through hard work. It didn't come through profitability, innovation, ingenuity, creativity. No. Somebody just made a digital entry on a screen, and voila, there's $1 trillion. That's called financializing your economy. When a country does that, it's debasing its currency. It's coming to the end of the road. Now, that doesn't mean America disappears. It just means the republic disappears. Because when you got nothing and you don't have any food or any heat, A, you're going to beg the government to take care of you on any terms the government wants to make. And that's their game, making us completely dependent upon the government. Well, you know, we could depend upon the government if it had a renewed social compact with we the people. How are we going to get there? You have to be involved in politics. We got to realize that the people that gravitate into politics, they're not like you and me. They're just not. You're going to say, why is that? My answer is because we're not there. So we leave a huge void for the scum, the flotsam and jetsam of our society to get involved in politics where they can make money doing nothing. They don't have to do anything. They just sit there and act like they're doing something. And why do I know that? Because virtually every problem that we're facing today existed when I was 15 years old. And now we got some new ones that have been grafted on to raise money off of, like election integrity. Well, there's a new one. We never had that for, healthcare. There's a new one. I mean, we got new problems, new grifts where the two parties can get on either side and just scream for money. Solve problems. That's what we're about. And I'm going to say I hope that we do solve this problem, that the government of the United States does collect 20% on all of the imports. Imports aren't going to stop. There won't be any inflation significantly from this. And if there is, that's the cost of $36 trillion. You know, we voted for these people. Cycle after cycle, we voted for Democrats and rhinos that have spent us into this spot. And now the bill is coming due. Don't complain. And when you see somebody put next, prices are going to go up, Just remember, you voted for that person and they voted to deficit spend and expand the money supply. The bill is coming due. That's it. Now, there's many ways to have the bill come due. Many ways. One way the bill could come due is we start over with new digital currency. That was the Democrat plan. That was the Federal Reserve's plan. It's called a bail-in. They were going to take all of our money so they could keep theirs. In other words, we're going to privatize the profits and socialize the losses. Socialize, like insurance, like communism. Everybody has equitable outcomes. Remember President Harris? We all need to have equitable outcomes. Remember the World Economic Forum? You'll have nothing, but you're going to be happy. See, we've been programmed over and over and over to accept this. And President Trump looked at this. This guy's a hardcore businessman. And he said, hey, you know what? That's crazy. I want all of you to get rich. You know, I'm not a communist. We're not doing great with TireGet. We're not. We're selling some tires. Please, the next time you need tires or your friends need tires, buy them because I want to stay on air and we want to expand this program. We now have two full-time producers. We're trying to expand the content. You're going to see more and more content coming because here at Free People Radio, why we call it Free People, is we are searching for the truth, even if it upsets people. Like, I'm not a proponent of AI. I'm not a proponent of convenience. I'm a proponent of the natural way. I'm probably going to do a whole podcast on that coming up soon. But saving the dollar, that's Trump's thing. He wants to save this dollar. How are you going to do it? You got to pay down that debt. That's just the way it is. And in the vein of never let a crisis go to waste, could you please play number 8?
Canada have less reliance on American trade, in your view?
That's a nice idea. It's a very nice idea. We live next door to the biggest economic and military superpower in the history of the world. We can fantasize about other trade partners, but I'm interested in reality. We've been fantasizing for the last 9 years, and look where it has got us. What we actually need to do is stand up for our economy by axing taxes, unleashing free enterprise, having a massive boom in our energy and resource production, and standing up for our country against unfair tariffs abroad.
Aside from all the measures that you laid out, would you be willing to retaliate?
If necessary. Si nécessaire.
You're asking the Prime Minister to put aside his partisanship. Will you put aside yours and join the government in a Team Canada approach?
I'm making nonpartisan suggestions today. But let me be clear. We don't need is a spectacle of a bunch of politicians sitting around tables, meeting, and holding photo ops. I know that would be a wonderful spectacle for all of you. You would all enjoy that kind of interpersonal theatrics. But what we really need is an action plan with tangibles. So bottom line, Trudeau's got to axe the carbon tax. He's got to lift the production cap on Canadian energy. He's got to rebuild our military and secure our borders. That is a real plan to protect our economy and our security and put Canada first, and that's more important than photo ops and meetings between politicians.
What do you think about the idea of Canada striking a separate bilateral agreement with the U.S., separate from Mexico? Do you endorse that idea?
Canada first. Let's put it this way. One, I only care about Canada. I want to put our country first. Two, America is responsible for over 60% of our trade. We trade more with the U.S. than we do with the rest of the world combined. I will do what is necessary to preserve and protect that relationship above all others.
That is Pierre Poilievre, who is the presumptive next leader of Canada. He was trashing Trudeau, talking about the last 9 years were misguided. And did you listen to him? I want to put Canada first. Kind of like America first, didn't it sound a little bit familiar?
Yeah, it sounded very familiar.
Well, you know what this is? What happens now is freedom anywhere increases freedom everywhere because we're fighting a globalist system. So this leader in Canada, he's an alleged conservative, which, to me, his conservatism is a little shaky, but you're only good or bad by comparison. So compared to his competitors, well, this guy's a stud, right? And he cares about, okay, he's going to get rid of the carbon tax. We're going to, re-energize trade within our own country. We're going to change everything. We're going to unleash Canadian energy. What he's saying is the Green New Deal is a scam. Trudeau is a scam. The World Economic Forum is a scam. Globalism is a scam. I only care about my own country and my own people. Let me represent them. He's taking this crisis and he's using it to give the leftists in Canada, and it is a communist country, really. Certainly it's a globalist country. It's part of the Commonwealth, after all. He's giving them a conservative suppository, which is great because, again, the expansion of freedom anywhere increases the possibility for freedom everywhere. And that is precisely why it's so important to the United Nations and to the globalists to make everybody in the United States poor and afraid. And President Trump showed up and, he's wrecking their plans and they don't like it. And he knows he's in a war. He knows he's in a war, ideological war, and he's not kidding around. And I'm watching. These people were not mentally prepared. They thought they were going to win. They actually proceeded as if they knew what the outcome was going to be. And now the outcome is different than what they expected, and they're at a complete loss to deal with it. Wow. Let's see what we can do together when we get involved in politics and get rid of the rhinos, start clipping out the rhinos from the Republican Party by becoming delegates so that when the parties endorse or when there's primaries, the rhinos have to retire and we get real American citizens like Drew Roach moving forward in the political process because these people have principles. They're coming at things with two fundamental ideas at their core. They're searching for truth and they love their neighbors as they want to be loved. They believe in our Constitution, in our founding documents. That's why you hear the left saying all the time, oh, these people are extra constitutional. No, we're not. You guys are. There's nobody saying in the Trump movement we have to rewrite the Constitution, but go find the dean of the Berkeley Law School and listen to him talk about it on where? Morning Joe, MSNBC. So in Mexico, let's just talk about Mexico. Let's just say we get down the road here and we get that 20% or 25% tax on Mexico. Mexico is like the United States. It's one of the only countries in the world that has two oceans for borders. When you got an East Coast and a West Coast on the ocean, hey, you're a trading country. As of November 2023, which is the most recent information I could find, Mexico was involved in 13 free trade agreements with 50 countries. Mexico is an economic juggernaut just waiting to be unleashed. Mexico, this kind of a crisis could be a great opportunity for the Mexican people to do what? Make Mexico great again. Mexico has become very dependent on the United States. That's not good. Dependency never is good. Abraham Lincoln formed the Republican Party because he saw the dependency between the slave owner and the slave as being inherently unwell, anti-spiritual, anti-human for both the owner of the slave and the slave. Well, dependency is no different. Canada and Mexico are dependent on the United States. Of course, it makes these countries subversive. Nobody wants to be dependent. We have to be independent, sovereign nations, independent, sovereign people. We're Republicans. It's a life philosophy. I want every Mexican not to be a communist. Claudia Sheinbaum, their president, is a communist. She's not. We're not talking about a hidden communist. You ask her, are you a communist? She's going to say, yes, I am. She's a communist. We have to our southern border a communist country, all communist all the time. You think that might be a problem? Do you think our Democrat Party was okay with that and helped set that up? Is it possible that the United States Agency for International Development was part of that process? Well, that's what our current government is going to look into. And in Canada, Justin Trudeau, man, this guy is a young leader of the World Economic Forum. Chrystia Freeland, his number two, who just resigned to run against, to run in the next presidential election, which is coming up. She's a trustee of the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab, can you remind me of this? Klaus Schwab talks about penetrating the cabinets with his people. In Canada, whoa, he's in charge up there, the World Economic Forum. And you look at their politics and what they've done and how they've moved to implement the green energy deal and how they suppress dissent. I mean, these people are tyrants up there. So we got tyrants down south, tyrants up north. We're stuck in the middle. And President Trump said, okay, watch this, kids. Watch this. I'm going to make these people do what I want them to do. And he did. And I'm watching the leftists on X saying he caved. No, he is changing both countries' politics. He's creating a crisis. He's creating freedom here. And in that crisis, freedom could enter both Mexico and Canada. We don't know the plan. That's why I read, oh, the depths of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable his judgments and his paths beyond tracing out. Who has known the mind of the Lord? Or who has been his counselor? Who has ever given to God that God should repay them? For from him and through him and for him are all things. To him be the glory forever. Amen. Hey, we need to get involved. Now, there's crises everywhere. Let's just talk a little bit about Minneapolis, because the same thing is going on in your big city, in your town. Since COVID, the real estate values and the real estate occupancy in your core city, wherever you are, has plummeted. The tax revenue and tax base of your big cities is devastated. This is being fenced as a crisis, and it is. It is a crisis. And who created this crisis? Well, let's play number 9.
Hello, friends. Keith Ellison here, Attorney General for the state of Minnesota. Recently, Trump official just issued a memorandum threatening local law enforcement with jail and investigation if they do not cooperate with federal law enforcement and immigration officials. There is nothing in American law that requires local officials to cooperate with federal law enforcement officials. In fact, the scarce resources of our state should be devoted to the business of our state, and the federal government should focus on its own business. It's not the job of local law enforcement to carry out the dictates of the Trump administration. In fact, they've tried this before when they were in power, and they lost just about all the time they were in court when they tried to coerce states into being their little deputies. So let me just say that I have no fear of the Trump administration, absolutely not. And we're going to devote the resources of our state to our state business, not immigration business. That's their business. We're going to do our business. And of course, we're not going to interfere with their business, but we're not going to do their bidding because it's not our job. Thank you.
Well, that's our leftist attorney general here, Keith Ellison. This is why I got upset about Andrew Myers putting up the picture of the sheriff, because, see, this is why our core city has turned into a no-go zone, because our chief law enforcement officer is not enforcing the laws. He has this kind of economic, we don't have the resources. Is there anything more important than every law enforcement agency now working with the Trump administration to remove the cartels from our cities? This is why you can't go downtown. This is why downtown's not working. It's not safe there. It's just not safe there anymore. And people don't want to go downtown. They want to get out. And when you have your chief law enforcement agency and officer saying, well, we're not going to interfere. By not helping, you're interfering. That's just the way it is. It's like a pick, right? And then we got Republican elected officials that don't want to piss off the leftists in their districts because they want to keep their jobs. And they say, okay, I support the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. If it's an accident, it was a very untimely accident, Andrew. Clarify it. Just put up tomorrow on X, I support President Trump's deportation efforts to make Hennepin County safe for our citizens. It's very simple. You can clarify. Don't clarify it with more pictures of law enforcement and the fire department and food shelves. That doesn't clarify it. You're obscuring it. See, I'm holding you accountable. And everybody, if we would come to the X spaces and get into our local parties and understand our local politics, we could hold every elected official from dog catcher to president accountable to we the people. And if we did that, guess what would happen? It would seem rather chaotic. There'd be a lot of us striving to express ourselves. And that's exactly what the founders and framers of this country intended, that there would be a marketplace of ideas and the best ideas would prevail. Like here's an idea that's prevailed for over 2,000 years. Love your neighbor as you wish to be loved. That one went into the marketplace of the Roman Empire and prevailed for 2,000 years. But we got people standing up in pulpits preaching it, and they don't really believe it. They're not walking by faith. They're walking by non-governmental organization activities. And who funds them? The USAID. Oh, we're into it now, baby. We're pulling the Band-Aid off. We're going to look at all the corruption and let the chips fall where they may. If we pull back the curtain and it's all good in the hood, hey, we lose. If we pull back the curtain and it's corrupt, we got a chance for reform. We got a chance for reform. Now, when our Attorney General speaks about not working with the federal government to enforce the laws, let's talk about what happens. Could you please play number 10, just because I want to give you an idea of what's happening and what the opportunity is for our, in every state, we have the same issue going on, but specifically for Minnesota. Number 10, this is a film that was put up by the Onward investors who just purchased number 10, please. Okay, so Tanner's putting up number 10. This is a film that was posted up by Minnetonka-based Onward investors. This is about their recent purchase of the Ameriprise Tower. These are images of it. And I want to show you these images because this building was built for $200 million, or recently sold for $200 million in 2016. Look at the size of this building. Look at the size. This is right downtown Minneapolis, a 31-story property. I don't have the number of what was paid to build it, but it was sold just 9 years ago for $200 million. And the Ameriprise people, which is a financial services company, because business is so good, decided to leave this property. They've moved out to save money because business has been so great under Bidenomics. And they've consolidated to another property that they own, leaving this building empty. And this Minnetonka-based Onward investors paid $6.25 million for this giant building, downtown Minneapolis. $6 million, man. There's houses in SD 45 that are worth $6 million. Look at the size of that thing. Can you believe that sold for $6 million?
It's crazy to me. That 960,000 square feet
for $6 million. Now, this is called a real estate crisis. Real estate crisis. And I was looking at it. That's good. Thank you. That's good enough. So I was looking at all the scuttlebutt on X and listening to all the party people chatter about, oh my God, we're going to have to move out of the Twin Cities because now the Urban Core Center is losing its commercial tax base, which it is, and it's going to have to go out and tax the other residents of Hennepin County, where Andrew Myers is a legislator, going to have to tax his constituents to pay for the lifestyle of the core inner city because they've lost their commercial real estate tax base. I mean, come on, $200 million to $6 million. Might as well give it away for free. It's valueless. Has no value. Why does it have no value? Because with any property, if it has no use, it has no value. It's just bricks and sticks. There's no revenue stream there today. So what has to happen here? Well, to the people in the Republican Party who view this as a crisis, you're darn right it's a crisis. And with that crisis is an enormous opportunity. Because here's the thing. We lose in Minnesota because we do not have the votes in the core cities. Outstate, it's ruby red from east to west and north to south. Couple little blue pockets where there's universities. Oh, and where there's healthcare at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. There's a little bit of, blue scattered about, but the votes are in the cities, and the votes are overwhelmingly Democrat, like 90-10. 90-10. Why? Because this is the railhead of the post-World War II Democrat liberal order, and everybody that lives in the cities on the payroll. Got lots of NGOs working away there. Okay, so guess what? Now, because Minneapolis and Hennepin County is not going to be able to feed the beast as it has in the past, it's going to go out and tax the citizens in the broader county. Most of those citizens want to vote for leftists, communists, like the doctor, Kelly Morrison, here in CD3, who was sent to Congress an overwhelming victory over the Republican, who was not a very good candidate, but nonetheless, the Democrat controls this city area. But are they going to control it when their constituents are taxed at a much higher level? I mean, if you don't believe in God, after all, if it's all about materialism, how far are you willing to go to maintain and sustain those beliefs? Are you willing to pay another 10 or 20% of your income for the good of the people? Because, see, I don't think they are. I think they're taxed enough already also. So now that the policies of the Democrat Party at the state level and also at the city level have collapsed that inner city, leaving those people destitute, in poverty, and, exposed to crime and corruption. And now that has to spread out. They have to socialize those losses over a much wider number of people to keep the scam running. How far can they really go with this, Republicans? Are you willing to speak to it? Are you willing to speak to the core issues, search for truth, and offer an alternative to the residents of the core cities, of the core counties, Hennepin and Ramsey County, Dakota County? Can we speak to them with clarity and honesty about freedom, about self-governance? Can we say to them that now you're tasting the enslavement of a system that's collapsing? You have to pay for it. You have to give up your freedom to pay for the system that you believe in. Are you willing to do that? And I'm going to tell you, they're not. So when we accommodate the communists here in Minnesota or in any state, we're missing the opportunity of this moment. We're missing the opportunity of this crisis to speak to our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, and our children. We're missing the opportunity to speak full-throatedly about human freedom and human well-being. That when we are taxed, we are enslaved. That's why this country came into being. Well, one of the many reasons, at least that's the one they teach in the leftist school books, because it's all about the money. Everybody is taught it's all about the price and the money. Well, hey, to live in your core city, wherever you are, I mean, who's going to pay for Los Angeles? We all are. Their narrative is collapsing. Their ideological framework is failing. Let us get together right now and look back at what's happened and do something about it for the generations that are coming after us. I want to thank you for being here with me tonight. We're going to have a great interview, hopefully, on Thursday night. Tune in for that. We're going to keep talking to people and learning from them. And I'm going to ask Tanner to take us out with a Johnny Cash piece called Hurt. I had 2 different pieces of music I gave you. Mm-hmm. Let's go out with Hurt, because it's such a powerful piece of music about a man at the end of his life looking back at what he's done. Let us not have regrets. President Trump has opened a moment here where whatever regrets we have had, we can let them go by becoming Republicans. Republicanism is a philosophy. It's not a political party. It's a philosophy that involves the redemption of the human soul. Let us play with that in our own lives. Let us discover it, and let us learn that there is freedom in the philosophy of republicanism. Thanks very much, and I'll see you again soon, God willing.
Have a good night, everybody.
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real. The needle tears a hole, the old familiar sting. Try to kill it all away, but I remember everything. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in the end, and you could have it all. My empire of dirt, I will let you down. I will make you hurt.
You stay the hell away from me, you hear?
I wear this crown of thorns upon my liar's chair, full of broken thoughts I cannot repair. Beneath the stains of time, the feelings disappear. You are someone else. I am still right here. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in the end, and you could have it all. My empire of dirt, I will let you down. I will make you hurt. If I could start